Hi lads, how's it going? It's Shane here coming to you this week with your Thursday tip. My Thursday tip this week is going to be talking to you a little bit about progress and measuring your progress, how to measure progress. So we get a lot of people who come in here to the gym who start their 6-week challenges or 12-week transformations, and they've come from slimmer groups where they've been taught through the group that the only way to measure progress is all through the scales. It's what the number says on the scales. And when you start training these factors, there's going to be other factors that play into measuring your progress, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you a little bit about today. The first thing, when it comes to the scales, guys, the scales is going to fluctuate day to day, week to week, month to month, almost hour to hour. So for example, you get up in the morning, first thing, you get on the scales, you weigh yourself, it's going to say a certain weight. You weigh yourself later on in the evening, then it's going to be a little bit heavier. You're going to be a little bit heavier because you've spent the whole day drinking water, a whole day eating, and naturally you're going to be a little bit heavier. Likewise, weighing yourself on different scales are going to be different as well. Okay, so my advice when it comes to the scales is weigh yourself on the same scales in the same spot at the same time every single week. That is the only way to keep it consistent and accurately determine your weight as you go forward. It is not the most important thing when it comes to transformations, and I want to talk to you about a few other things that play into it too. So I have a client who recently started, I think she's 4 or 5 weeks into her program. I see her 3 times a week, and we've been training. She's been training, flying along with her training. She's loving it. And last week I weighed her in, got her up on the scales, and her weight had stayed the same from the week before. And I could see straight away the minute that she walked away that her head dropped a little bit, and you know, you could tell that she was a little bit disappointed with her. So I had a little chat with her after the session, and I just wanted to find out a few other things of what she's been doing. And I just asked her a few questions, and I wanted to see if it resonated with her. So the first thing I said was, okay, so you know, your weight is the same as last week. How's your energy feeling? And she was like, oh Shane, it's great. Like I'm coming home from work in the evenings, and I'm running around with the kids, and I'm bringing them down to the park, and it's great. I'm like, okay, and that's a good thing, isn't it? And she was like, yeah, no, that's great. And then I was like, and what about your nutrition and your food? And she was like, oh yeah, no, I'm prepping my meals before the night before work, and I'm bringing my breakfast with me into work. I'm not going to the garage anymore at lunchtime and getting a sandwich. I'm sticking to the plan. It's great. And I was like, okay, and that's a good thing, isn't it? She was like, yeah, no, that's great. And then I said, what about training? She said, oh yeah, no, I'm training 3 times a week up here with you, and it's great. And then I actually did a class last week, so I did 4 sessions last week, and I was like, 4 sessions? Oh, that's great. I was like, when was the last time you did 4 gym sessions a week? She was like, never. I was like, oh, so that's a good thing, isn't it? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay, what else? I was like, what about sleep? How's your sleep? She was like, oh, I'm sleeping great. Usually I'd wake up 3-4 times in the middle of the night. I'm not waking up at all anymore. I was like, oh, that's a good thing then as well, isn't it? She was like, yeah. And I was like, and what about your clothes? And she was like, oh yeah, no, my clothes are hanging off me. She's like, I had to ask my supervisor and work to order me a new pair of trousers last week because they're too big on me. And I was like, I suppose that's a good complaint, isn't it? She was like, yeah, no, I feel great. And I was like, okay, so why are you letting the number that the scale says determine whether you're progressing or not? Does that make sense? And it really hit home with her, I think, because I've seen a change in her mindset already as of this week, and she's flying along as it is. But that's just something that people sort of skip past all these things because the weight on the scales is going to change. So that was kind of something. But when it comes to weight loss, guys, I am aware that it is mentally nice to see the scales coming down. When you are here for fat loss, it is very important. But another thing I get quite a lot of is, oh, I only lost 1 pound last week. I was a bit disappointed with that. And I always use this. Any of the guys that do the 6-week challenge that I chat to regularly will have heard me say this. You know, we have 52 weeks in a year. If you lose 1 pound a week over 52 weeks, that's 52 pounds a year. 14 pounds in 1 stone, it works out at just under 4 stone a year. If you were to lose just 1 pound a week every single week for the whole year. Most people that come in don't actually have 4 stone to lose. So don't worry about only losing 1 a week. As long as you're going in the right direction, that's the main thing, and that's what we want to focus on. But yeah, that was just something that you know, I was saying to her, and she sort of was like, yeah, no, it makes sense, and now she's starting to look at other factors that play into it as well. But guys, what's most important when people come in here is that, one, that they feel better from when they did before. Sometimes people need to sort of look back at where they were 3, 4, 5 weeks ago and say, Jesus, look how far I've come in the last 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. 4 weeks ago I would have never even walked into a gym. I wouldn't have had the nerve to just walk into a gym. I was too anxious. I wasn't able to do it. Now I'm training 3 times a week in the gym. I love it. I'm following the food. I'm feeling great. Everything is going good. Sometimes you need to just sort of stop and pinch yourself and sort of realize how far you've come in the last, whether it's 3, 4, 5 weeks, whatever it is, and say, okay, I'm making big changes. Because at the end of the day, we're not trying to do quick fixes here. It's not about quick fixes. At the end of the day, we're trying to change your body composition, how you physically look. And that's the most important thing. Like I always say, you know, your friends aren't going to come up and say, oh Jesus Sally, you look 11 stone today. They're going to come up and say, Jesus Sally, you look great, you have to lose a lot of weight. They're going to notice that. They're not going to know how much you weigh. So it shouldn't be as important to you, because it's not as important to anybody else. If that sort of makes sense. So I hope that part really made sense on that one. But it's important that we're not just looking at short-term quick fixes here. At the end of the day, we want you to be able to create these habits for life and be able to carry these forward for the rest of your life, not just for 3-4 weeks or whatever it is. We want to create these habits, prepping your meals, coming to the gym, all these things. We want to instill these into your day-to-day life, so it just becomes a normal thing. You don't have to worry about oh, it's not a stress to go to the gym, it's just part of my day-to-day routine. And if you can adapt that mindset where you're creating these habits and you're consistent with your training, you will get great results, okay? And that's kind of my main tip that I want to sort of share with you guys today, is just measuring progress and just looking out for other things. That's not always about the number that it says on the scales. There are a lot of other things that are changing in your life that you need to take note of as well, and give yourself a pat on the back and say, Jesus, I'm actually doing really well, and everything is going good. Guys, that's my Thursday tip for today. I hope that made sense, and I hope that resonates with some people, because I know that there's a lot of people that need to see this video. Thanks very much for watching. My name is Shane Clark on Facebook. If anybody has any questions or any follow-up questions from this video, or wants to ask me about fat loss, nutrition, anything like that, feel free to drop me a message. I am here to help. Thanks very much for watching the video. Have a great Thursday, and I'll see you soon.